leading keynote speaker is Dick Orkin. Dick began in radio, I believe it was at WLAN in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a number of years ago, and quickly developed a distinguished radio career. Actually, this is my introduction to Dick. We were talking, how should I introduce you? And he said, say whatever you want. Bottom line is this. Dick Orkin is a legend in advertising. They study him around the world in advertising courses, and he speaks around the world to advertising agencies. Dick Orkin's Radio Ranch is the leading light for humorous radio commercials that both are funny and sell. He's had a lot of success at this, is internationally renowned. If he decides to leave this business, he went to Yale Drama School, as I recall. Maybe he's going to write a play, and it'll win a Pulitzer Prize, and then maybe he will write a novel, and maybe the body of his writing will win the Nobel Prize for literature. It doesn't matter. 50 years from now, when he dies in his sleep at a very old age, the headline in the newspaper will be, Dick Orkin dies, created Chickenman. Okay, that's the thing, like it or not, that he will always be embraced by anyone who's ever listened to radio. He is the honcho of Dick Orkin's Radio Ranch in Los Angeles, and although these days he's best known for advertising, he's not here to talk about advertising so much as about working in radio and making what you do special, how to make every feature, everything you do on your program, on your radio station, maybe in your career, your own. Please welcome Dick Orkin.
Good morning. Nobel Prize. Very impressed. When I hear these I had a brief conversation with Dan. He said that he was looking for some words for me. And I'm sort of traumatized by introductions. There's an experience that I had occurred to me as he started, that little pounding. That little heart thump started when I heard the introduction, because I had a traumatic experience. Anyone here from Grand Rapids? Good. I had an experience in Grand Rapids, Michigan about a year ago. A guy wanted me to come and talk and had been struggling for maybe 3 or 4 years to get me to come up there. And when I arrived, he met me at the airport, and he was wearing a cast on his arm. He had broken his arm. I'm getting a nice little feedback here. Or raise my arm again?
The loud.
Oh, the loud. Oh.
If you make it higher, then maybe we can lower the
See.
gain.
Test 1 2. Hello. See, I do remember something about radio. Test 1 2 1 2 1 2 test. Yeah. Can you hear me? So he had showed up at the airport, and he had his arm in a cast, and he was just sweating profusely. And I said, "What happened?" And he said, "I broke my arm the day before. I'm just so excited about your being here, Dick," and so on and so forth. And he drove me immediately, because the plane was late arriving, and we drove me quickly to the place where I was to do this talk. And he said, "I haven't had a chance to prepare anything. Is there anything you want me to say?" I said, "No, just whatever." I said, "You have the bio. Just read something in the bio if you want to." In fact, Dan did a better job quoting from the bio than he did. And he finally said, "Okay, fine." And he was very, very excited when he got up there. And he glanced down at the bio, and the first line of my bio was something like, "Dick Orkin is radio's champion sharpshooter, the wildest gun in the West who hits the bullseye every time for clients like," and they mentioned the clients. Well, he was so excited, and he just glanced down, and all he could see was, "And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the wildest Dick in the West." But then he realized, because he heard this roar go up from the audience, and then as he paused and tried to think of a way to recover and realized he couldn't, he just said, "And here's that Dick Orkin." And I got up there, and it was one of those rare opportunities where you had a line handed to you, so I said, "Unfortunately, I'm only going to be in Grand Rapids for around 2 hours, so I won't have a chance to prove any of this material." When Dan invited me here, I had no idea that this kind of event involves as much hard work as it does on your part. I figured, it's like party time for most of you. So I was very impressed with, I saw many of you last night meeting in little groups out in the lobby, and Dan explained to me that you really get together and you talk shop and you form little, committees and little meeting groups. And I know you work hard because I heard many of you meeting until 2 a.m. this morning outside my room. Did some of you hear those meetings? Yeah, they went on till like 2:30 in the morning. And I noticed when I came out of my door this morning that one of your subcommittees had thrown up in front of my room. And I stepped over it and came down for breakfast. Last couple of years, as I have listened to radio when I'm on the road or even in Los Angeles, where I must confess I don't do a lot of listening to commercial radio, more I tend to listen to public radio, and for reasons I'll mention in a few moments. But at least as I travel the country, I'm sort of required to catch up on what else is happening in the world of advertising besides the Dick Orkin radio commercials. And I've noticed something going on, and it's something that was getting on my nerves the last couple of years. And I get very emotional about it, get very passionate about it, but then I come before a group like this, or mostly advertising people where it isn't appropriate to discuss this, and I sort of stuff it down. I wouldn't talk about it. And I met with Dan about 4 or 5 months ago in Los Angeles, where he broached the subject of my coming here, and I told him about this thing that's getting on my nerves and beginning to irritate me. And I got very passionate about it, and Dan said, "Whoa, if you feel this way, then why not come to this event today and vent? Here's an opportunity to really talk about how you feel. And just let it all hang out if you want." So Dan then selected the title of How to Make Every Feature Your Own. That was his choice of title. And it rather surprised me because it didn't sound like an opportunity for venting. I was a little disappointed. It's not the one that I would have chosen. And the one I would have chosen is, actually the one that he did choose, is that what it says, How to Make Every Feature Your Own? I think it does. That sort of, to me, has a benign sound, like a health prevention article, how to stay regular the natural way. And I was hoping for something that had a little bit more spine to it, a little bit more, power behind it. But it's an okay title. But I decided that if I had to choose a title, actually, let's dim the lights a little bit there and we'll show them. If I had to choose a title, this is probably the one that I would have chosen. There we go. This is the one that I... But Dan saw this and he said, "Dick, I have a problem with it." He didn't think it would be the most appealing way to, start the day here with a group of DJs. So I said, okay, I'm willing to change. I'm flexible. That's what being in the broadcast advertising business is all about. So I chose this one. And then Dan said, I don't think that's really quite appropriate either. So we're back to the one that Dan chose, How to Make Every Feature Your Own. I mean, it's okay. It's not bad. That's the one Dan chose. I'll tell you a story. About 4 years ago, I had a radio client who said, "Dick, I'd like you to write a television commercial for me. We want to actually have you help us produce the commercial. I rarely do TV." I said, "Great. It'd be a good experience for me." And I wrote the spot. And this is a client who never had anything to say about the radio spots. We'd send the copy to him. Usually we recorded the material and sent it on tape, and he'd respond. Never a change. But for some reason, I wrote the damn TV spot, and he fiddled with it. He had this change, and that change, and this change. He was trying to make it better all the time. And finally, we agreed on the spot. We went out to do the spot, and we chose, me, of all the locations. I could have chosen any exotic location I wanted, including Fiji, and I chose the desert, the Mojave Desert, and we needed the desert. We took a small film crew in a van. We went out there to shoot near the edge of the desert. And we were out there for around 2 days shooting, and somehow the client and I decided to take a walk, and we got lost. And 2 hours turned into 3 hours, and 3 hours turned into 6 hours, and we were desperate. We couldn't find the crew. We couldn't find it, because all desert looks the same after a while. And we were so thirsty, just absolutely dying of thirst, and I was getting quite worried. I thought, this may be the end if we don't find this damn crew. And as we were trudging along, I should say, in the sand, I spotted what looked like a bottle sticking out of the sand, and we got closer to it, and it was a bottle of beer. And I realized that this is where the crew had been. They'd left the bottle there. And it was still a little cold to the touch. And we were both so ecstatic. And he grabbed it first before I had a really chance to do anything with it, and he popped off the top, and then he peed in it. I said, "Why in the hell did you do that?" And he smiled at me and said, "I'm going to make it better." Dan, I'm going to make this better. Somewhere, here we go. So I'd like to change this to how to make everything you do on the air your own. Now, I was asked last year by a radio group, a large group, to listen to some air checks, about 24 of them from all across the country. And they wanted my opinion of the performance, not the content. I wasn't really qualified to talk about the content, but just how the performers are performing. And as I did, it seemed to me that this was kind of useful information in preparation for anything that I did like this at one time or another. But something occurred to me that I hadn't counted on. Some event occurred I hadn't counted on. And that was some kind of extraordinary experience with the material. And what I found is what I'm going to read to you in my concluding paragraph that I sent in a report to these folks. I sent about 6 pages back to them. And what I said to them was, quoting from it, "Although there are several individual standout performers on the tapes, I am struck by the overwhelming and mind-numbing sameness in the performances, in their style of communication. And I said, in a medium that offers the unique capacity for intimacy, for a personal, up-close, one-to-one relationship with the audience, again with a few exceptions, they all seem to be strangely struck from the same radio performer mold. And I said, first, I hear the sameness in their vocal melody. Now, all of us have a vocal melody, everyone here, and except for regional sameness, each of us have a distinctive melody. I mean, all the folks in this region, for example, could have that kind of melody in their voice, but usually there is a regional difference as you move from region to region. And then apart from that, there's another kind of sameness that occurs within the same region that has to do with a reflection of the individual personality and the character of the performer. So I said in my little concluding paragraph, I said, change name and location, and your performers all seem to be the same person, agreeable, affable, but not really very compelling or memorable as personalities. I said I also hear the sameness in their choice of language. I counted up similar vocal expressions until they fell into my notebook that I was keeping under the heading of repetitive, boring, and meaningless cliches. I also hear the sameness in the way commercial copy is read. I hear the sameness in radio in the news copy that's read. I'm still quoting from my piece I sent to them. I said I hear people reading or talking at me and not to me. I hear the sameness in radio in the interviews, where opportunities for spontaneous response is squelched by cliche questions that often fail to connect to the moment, and even worse, are inappropriate given the mood and the tone and the situation sometimes of the caller. Let me give you an example. This is a conversation I heard in one of the tapes. The caller, a member of the audience, said they were talking about a theme park experience, and the interview was about the theme park. And the caller said, and our 7-year-old son was lost for like 2 hours at the theme park, and we thought we were going to go out of our mind. And finally, the security people found him, and he was in tears, and it was really a nightmare. And the interviewer said in response, after a beat of maybe 2 or 3 seconds, I'll bet. So, what was his favorite ride? I actually heard that. That was event number 1, these tapes I received. Event number 2 is an article by writer Mitch Albom in the Detroit Free Press. It was reprinted in the April 24th, May 7th issue of Radio Inc. And it was called Radio is All Alike Now. And apparently he spent several days driving through Detroit, Dayton, Atlanta, Charlotte, Orlando, and Tallahassee. I'm going to quote from something he said. He said, I've heard them all, the same 6 stations over and over. And he names the 6 stations. I'm not going to describe them. By the way, they're in one of the handout sheets I gave you. Don't look at it now. His list is kind of fun, and you can agree or disagree with his perception about how radio falls into these formats. But here's something he says that I think is terribly important. He says, radio has fallen into the homogenization of America. What he means is whatever happened to local identity, regional flavor. And I quote him again. He said, pretty soon 5 companies will own the whole country, and each will have 200 radio stations sounding exactly the same, and there won't be a lot of traveling because wherever you go, you'll be home. So I suppose there's a benefit to that. That was Mitch Albom's piece. Now, I've been around radio since the 1950s, maybe a little bit earlier than that. Actually, the first station was WKOK in Sunbury, Pennsylvania, not WLAN in Lancaster. And as far as I can remember, we've always had the problem of radio performers imitating other performers, not making what they do their own. And in my opinion, the imitation is continuing, but I think it may be reaching epidemic proportions. I mean, there's nothing wrong with imitation if it works, but it doesn't in many cases. And if all we're going to get is vocal posturing and cliche phrases, frankly, guys, it's very dull. And I suggest to you, as someone who's concerned with the health of radio, that it's an invitation to turn off and tune out. And you may be saying, hey, Tinseltown Breath, when you stumbled into radio a number of years ago, first WKOK and then WGAL and WLAN, KYW in Cleveland, it was in Cleveland at one time, in case you've forgotten. Weren't you really, Dick Orkin, the king of the imitators? In fact, to quote an interview that you gave in the late 1960s, when you were talking about Chickenman, didn't you admit that you were inspired by Jack Benny when you were a kid, and then later Stan Freberg and Bob and Ray, and guilty? I did. So you say, what are you talking about? Here's what I'm talking about. Benny and Freberg and Bob and Ray and Gene Shepard, a lot of those folks around that time, were inspirations, no question about that. But inspiration is one thing. Imitation is something else. If I were only imitating, I think I would have been found out by the only people who count. That's the audience. And my career would have been an extremely short one. Inspiration, on the other hand, is something else. The dictionary definition is the stimulation of faculties to a high level of feeling or activity. Another meaning is divine guidance or influence upon the mind and the soul of man. Now, my esteemed colleagues in radio, although this may be a first at a meeting of this kind, Dan has assured me it is, I'm going to talk about something that rarely gets talked about in meetings like this. It's the word soul. Now, I don't mean soul in the theological or religious sense, but in the way that, for example, well, making love speaks to soul. As in soul music or soul food. Soul is the you that is you. If you take away the flesh and bones, it's what's left. It's your essence. It's what connects you. It's what's uniquely you. And by connect, I mean connects you to the person sitting next to you. And if you follow Dan's directions, today that person is not someone you know very well, but there is a connection between you and that individual beside you. It is what connects you as well to almost everything else in the world, which does not necessarily have to be a live thing. Could be a rock, a tree, a mountain, a river, a car, a computer, as we all know. In other words, everything you feel a connection to or feel you want to connect to in your life is what I mean by soul and soul experience. Now, I heard the snort and the snicker from the back of the room. I think it was Dan. And you're saying, what are you talking about? You who come from Hollywood, the land of glitz and glamour. How can you talk about soul connections, about truth and genuineness? Okay, you've got me in a way, because Hollywood is a tad phony and pretentious at times, glitzy certainly. This is what we think of when we think about Hollywood, famous Chinese theater. But there's another side of Hollywood. I'm going to talk to you about it. There's desert, there's nearby ocean and beach. There's not an ugly place to be found anywhere in Hollywood. Oh, by the way, would you like to see where the Radio Ranch is located, where we work? Oh, come on. You know we had an earthquake, okay? This is before the earthquake. After the earthquake, we had a chance to rebuild. Some think we went a little too far, But, I mean, we retained a little bit of the old with this little Mexican-style gazebo that we have. And it's here where we brainstorm with our staff of 4 writers and do our basic work that prepares us to do the commercials we do. And we take our lunch here usually. But here's really the important thing. Underneath all of this glamour and this glitz that someone referred to, someone in the back of the room there, Hollywood is a very small town. It's very provincial, a lot like the places you come to. And my home in Hollywood, the place where I live and the place I work and eat and sleep and play, is probably much like yours, very unassuming. Want to see where I live? It's a lot like my workplace. Over on the left, you can't see it from here, there's some bloody socks. We're not sure, but we think it was planted there by a member of the LA Police Department. Not quite sure. But if you think this is unassuming, and this is sure as unassuming as it gets, you should have seen the place where I was born, Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Anyone from Williamsport here? That's Williamsport, Pennsylvania, place where I was born. And here I am, truly, this is me, at 10 weeks old. Cute kid. Here I am at 3 weeks old. Easy with the laughter. And here I am at age 9 with my cousin Jerry and my brother Bob. Bob's the one with the milk bottle on the right there. Mom had a hell of a time getting him off the bottle. But I'm the one on the left there. My brother Bob died at age 37, cause unknown, except he smoked a lot, and he drank a little, and I don't mean from the milk bottle. At age 13, I moved to Sunbury, Pennsylvania, population 16,000. On Chestnut Street in Sunbury, we gathered together every night around a floor model radio. Looks much like this one. And we listened to our favorite radio programs. I want you to close your eyes for a moment as I asked Linda to play a piece of the radio from that period. You can go ahead. This is how we would once listen to radio in a small town. The voices spoke to us, directly to us, and we spoke back to those voices. Early form of interactivity.
No, stay where you are.
Okay.
Do not break the stillness of this moment.
Right.
For this is a time of mystery, a time when imagination is free and moves forward swiftly, silently.
And I stared.
This is the haunting hour.
I was scared. And that experience has remained with me to this day, of being involved with the radio and the people who spoke on the radio in a very direct and interactive way. I'm not suggesting it doesn't happen today. I see people, when I'm sitting in Los Angeles at the traffic light, talking to Howard Stern or Rick Dees, and especially Rush Limbaugh. I see them talking to him a lot. But that was radio at night in 1949 in Sunbury, Pennsylvania. Now, the next morning I got up and I went to my high school graduation ceremony. And the next night I went to the school graduation dance with my girlfriend Sally, whose feet I stepped on too many times. And she lost her corsage on the dance floor and she cried. And then I said a very painful goodbye to my girlfriend Sally and to my parents and to my home and went off to college. 1 year of studying for medicine, but the chemistry lab made me very ill. So I switched to English and speech and theater. At the local swimming pool, I then met a lovely young girl by the name of Bunny Grosky. That's her high school graduation picture. We fell in love. And then I graduated from Franklin and Marshall College, and I went to the graduation dance in a suit that I bought at a pawn shop. And my date was, who else? Bunny Grosky. Bunny is the one beside the tall guy in the bad pawn shop suit. I loved this suit, by the way. She hated it. But she was, for me, the most beautiful gal there. And everyone knew that we were together and envied me, not the suit, Bunny. And I felt very, very important. And I married Bunny. I should have been tipped off by the name. We had 4 kids. One is missing, Lynn, the youngest, who wasn't around at the time we took this picture. And they all grew up, and they had children. There's some of the grandchildren. That's Bunny and me in the back row there. Those are all the kids, and one grandchild is missing there. And 40 years later, I still think Bunny Grosky is the most beautiful girl I know. And whenever I'm with her, I still feel very important. Now, I show you these very personal pictures and disclose these very personal stories, not simply because my friends are tired of seeing these slides and hearing these stories, but in order to show you guys where it is that my creative work in radio comes from. My life, the life I lived, and I'm still living. Now, that's not to discount the role of all the radio models in my life, like Bob and Ray and Stan Freeberg, Gene Shepard, and so many others, even Arthur Godfrey, Don McNeil. But you see, my radio hero stimulated in me the idea to allow my life to become the source of my work. It is how I make my work my own. Their work, my heroes' work, was the result of their own lives, and that's how they made it their own. I, on the other hand, could only create original work that came out of my life and my struggles. And here was the first, I think, legitimate expression of that life and that struggle. And you have to listen a little carefully to this, and then I'll go back and I'll talk about how I connected my life with what you're about to hear.
Now, another exciting episode in the life of the most fantastic crime fighter the world has ever known. Benton Harbor works as a shoe clerk Monday through Friday for a large downtown department store in Midland City. However, on weekends, his only 2 days off, he dons the weird costume of a fantastic feathered fighter to strike terror into the hearts of criminals as Midland City's white-winged weekend warrior, Chickenman. In today's exciting episode, we find the feathered fowl after a fruitless search for the vicious strangler on his way back to Midland City Hall.
All right, step to the rear of the bus, please.
Does this bus go to Midland City Hall, driver?
Yeah, it does, Mac.
Thank you. Pardon me, madam, is the seat taken?
No.
Thank you.
Hey,
Yes?
watch what you're poking those wings, will you?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was doing
Hey, ain't you Chicken Man?
that. Yes, I am.
That's what I thought. Listen, let me ask you something.
Of course.
How come if you're Chicken Man, you don't fly instead of taking the bus?
Well, you see, I believe it is my sacred duty to use my rare gift only when striking terrific terror into the hearts of criminals.
You can't fly, can you?
No, you see, it's not that.
Hey, yeah. You know whatchamacallit here can't fly?
No kidding. Hey, Abe,
Yeah?
you know whatchamacallit there can't fly. He just told her.
What's the wings for, then?
What's the wings for then?
Yeah, what's the wings for there?
Good citizens, allow me to explain. I do fly. However, it is my conviction that I should only, during times of criminal...
Hey, driver! Stop the bus in this bridge! Let's find out if he can fly!
Yeah, let's make him jump off the bridge!
Somebody grab a wing!
Good citizens, I understand your point of view. However, you must understand my point of view.
Well, how's the feathered fighter going to handle this little twist of fate? Consider his alternatives. Can he run? Yes. Can he jump? Yes. Can he swim? No. And more important still, can he fly? Be listening Monday for another exciting episode in the life of the most fantastic crime fighter the world has ever known.
So that was a Chicken Man episode written in 1968. It's a long time between 68 and 1985. But some of the truths about that character and how he got into radio, how he became a creation of a series, I think are essentially the same and are still true today. Every type of creative writing, said someone who wrote a very important book about creative writing, says, he says, depends on the credibility of character. Say it again. Depends on the credibility of character. Because you're a DJ and reading a commercial or doing news doesn't mean that's any less true. Every type of creative writing, and I'll add creative performance, depends upon the credibility of character. All of us are essentially the same, except in degrees. So how do we create then characters in advertising, in writing, on the air, that are like people in real life? Not artificially, but in some kind of three-dimensional way. What are they like? Well, I think the answer is really simplicity itself. They're like you and they're like me. Even the secret parts of you and me that we're not proud of, that we prefer not to share with the world. Now, since I know myself better than anyone else, let me tell you about me. Let me tell you my secrets. I'm greedy, I'm selfish, and I'm jealous, and I desperately try to be loved by all. And I'm thinking day and night of how to make myself important so that it will force people to love me, think good about me. And I always want to be in the right about everything. How fortunate you guys are that you're not like me. That you're not greedy, you're not selfish, you're not wanting to be loved by all, to be famous, or wanting to feel important. On the other hand, if you had my secrets, the one I just laid out for you in a very public way, then with my secrets you might have created the wonderful white-winged warrior Chickenman, and maybe even posed for a photo on a fire escape in Chicago, 1969. How in the hell I managed to allow them to talk me into this, I don't know, but this picture has haunted me since 1968. And today when people call and say, can I have a photo of you, and I send a handsome smiling photo of my face, sometimes sitting at a desk with a pipe, they'll say, no, not that one. The one of you in the chicken suit standing on a fire escape. I have to send that. Here's the second spot that followed in that series, and I'll talk about it for a moment. Second episode.
In our last exciting episode, the white-winged weekend warrior was on his way by bus to Midland City Hall when he was suddenly and angrily attacked by his fellow passengers. At the request of the passengers, the bus driver stopped the bus on the Great Midland City Bridge. And then the fantastic feathered fighter, with the passengers in pursuit, climbed to the top of the steel span, where...
Winged warrior, can you hear me?
Yes, Commissioner.
It's your mother. We brought her to see you.
Hello, Benton.
I don't want to see my mother.
It's all right, Commissioner. I'll talk to my boy.
Benton Harbor, get down here.
Oh, Mother.
Who do you think you are?
I am the fantastic feathered fighter, the
Oh,
white-winged
stow it.
warrior, Midland City's crushing answer.
What are you doing up there?
I'm waiting for the crowd below to disperse,
Why
Mother,
are all those people shouting for you to jump?
because that's what they want me to do.
What for? What did you do?
They want to see me fly, Mother.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Well, certainly it is, and that's why
Well, why don't you fly for the people?
Mother.
Mother nothing. Fly.
Mother, high flying is a sacred and great gift. I cannot simply
Oh,
use it.
shut up and fly. Benton Harbor, you fly right now, or I'll come up there and give you a smack you'll never forget.
But I simply...
Flap your wings.
I'm flapping.
Now jump.
Mother.
I said jump, Benton.
I'm jumping.
And make like a chicken.
Fuck.
No.
Well, how can Midland City's crushing answer to lawlessness and or evil refuse to obey his mother? At this moment, as millions of children observe this drama, will the feathered fighter fly? What do you think?
The penalty of feeling too important. When I was a kid and I sat around and read the superhero comic books, and I read a lot of them, and I listened to superheroes on the radio, I knew that I, Dickie Orkin, was destined for greatness too. But in the meantime, I had a lot of problems with my parents and my teachers. I craved their attention. I craved their respect. As an adolescent, I was skinny, I was shy, and I noticed girls and found them very exciting, but it was too painful to approach them. And there was something in me that said, oh, just to feel important, command respect, get attention, get my mom or my teachers to respect me, or get the pretty girls to notice me. I tried and I failed. Because you see, the problem with inflated importance is that it's ripe for puncturing. And so it is when I sat down to write in Chicago in 1967 this 3-minute serial called Chickenman. Those impossible dreams, those unattainable kinds of goals and wishes, and all the puncturing that happened in my life time and time again, all got projected onto this silly and impossible man called Benton Harbor, alias the Winged Warrior, a man who truly believed himself to be the greatest crime fighter the world has ever known. And Benton Harbor, alias Chickenman, fails because he is full of himself. But he fails for another reason, too. He's pretending to be something he is not. And his failure is the spine of this little drama, this little feature. And why do people laugh? Because they recognize themselves. It's someone else failing, not us, for a change, and we laugh at that. I suspect that much of the creation of Chickenman in those episodes came out of my life unconsciously, built on the what-ifs that inhabit all of our lives. What if I could fly? What if I could fight crime? What if I could command respect, be important, be famous? That was unconscious, but the characters in this radio serial were chosen on a conscious level from people I know. My mother, for example, is Mildred Harbor, also known as the Masked Mother, the maternal marauder. The police commissioner that you heard in some of the series came from the general manager of a radio station I once worked for. He was the one that always said, "Yes, I'm the police commissioner. Has anyone seen my coloring book?" That was the general manager of a radio station in Chicago. And Chickenman's girlfriend, Sadie Lechner, was modeled after, guess who? Bunny Grosky. I remembered wanting to impress Bunny, and I knew the key to impressing Bunny was to impress her mommy.
Yes?
Hello, Mrs. Lechner.
Who are you?
It's Benton Harbor.
Well, how come you're all dressed up like that?
Well, you see, on weekends I strike terrific terror into the
Please,
hearts.
come in.
Oh, thank you.
Take a chair. I'll tell my beautiful daughter, Sadie, you're here.
Thank you.
Sadie, I want you to go take a peek in the other room.
What for?
Just take a peek.
What's that big chicken doing sitting in our living room chair?
Remember the little boy you used to go to PS 42 with, the Harbor boy?
Benny Harbor?
Yeah, that's him.
And he turned into a chicken?
It's a costume. He's probably come to take you to a party. So be nice to him.
Hello, Benny.
Hello, Sadie.
It's nice to see you.
Likewise.
My, what a beautiful costume.
Oh, thank you.
So many feathers.
Yes.
Oh, and look at the beautiful wings.
Yes.
My goodness, you can flap them.
Yes, I can.
Mother, come quick and see how Benny flaps his wings.
Would you like to take a ride?
You got a car, Benton?
Oh, no, we'll fly.
Mother, Benny's got an airplane.
You got an airplane, Benton.
No, just time on my shoulder, Sadie, that's all.
Oh, Benny.
And I'll just open this window up over here.
Now, don't fly too high with my Sadie, Benton.
What if? Chicago, 1970. My son Mike, who's 11 years old, you saw his picture there, came home from school one day and he said, "Dad, all the kids in school belong to an organization called Indian Guides. Why can't you and I do something like that?" This was a kind of father and son club. Anyone belong to the Little Indian Guides with their kids here? Little club where they sat around, back there. They wore headdress, they sat around in meetings, and they talked in sort of ersatz Indian talk. A lot of togetherness in this kind of phony Indian setting, and they went out to campfires and danced around the campfires, the whole thing. Not something that Dick Orkin typically was fond of doing. And Mike said, "Why can't we do it, Dad? Why can't we, huh?" So I said, "Okay, let's do it." And we joined the Little Indian Club. We went to one meeting. We sat together wearing our Indian costumes and talked Indian talk. I hated it. Fortunately for me, my son Mike hated it more. And we said farewell to the Indian Guides. But in my own life, I remember the experience, and I said hello to it in a different way in this very small piece of an episode of Chickenman.
Yes? Yes?
Mrs. Harbour?
Yes, I am.
How do you do? My name is George Ravish. I represent the Little Indians of America.
The Little Indians?
That's right. We're an organization dedicated to taking small boys ages 7 to 11 and putting them out in the woods for long periods of time.
Why do you do that?
Because it's good for them.
I see.
I understand you have a son, Benton.
Oh, yes, Mr. Rubbish, but he's much older than 11.
That's Ravish. I know, but you see, we're looking for little Indian leaders.
Oh?
Good citizens who will volunteer their time to help us put kids out in the woods.
Oh, I see.
For long periods of time.
Well, perhaps you should speak with my son, Mr. Ravish.
Rubbish.
Rubbish.
Ravish.
Ravish.
Is he home?
Oh, yes. I was just about to take him his supper. Would you come this way?
Thank you. I'm sure that your son will welcome this opportunity to help us in our objectives.
Benton loves to help people.
Why are we standing in this bedroom closet?
Would you lift that trap door, Mr. Rubbish?
Okay.
My son spends most of his evenings down here.
Down here in the dark?
Well, I'll lead the way.
Okay. Yeah, like I was saying, I sure appreciate this
be
opportunity to talk with your son about our program, because we certainly need volunteers who understand the value of fresh air and sunshine.
Well, here we are.
Here we are where?
In the chicken cave.
Oh, yeah, sure. The chicken.
If we wait right here, Benton will come to us.
That's very interesting. Maybe I should come back, sometime when he's not eating. When he's not busy, I can come back and talk to him some other time.
Oh, there you are, Benton.
Hello, Mother. Do you have my lunch?
Yes, and now please don't get it all over your feathers this time.
Okay. Oh, boy, egg salad, my favorite.
Benton, I'd like you to meet Mr. Rubbish.
Mr. who?
Mr. Now, where did he go? Mr. Rubbish?
Mr. Rubbish.
Oh, Mr. Rubbish!
What if, Chicago, 1971, the hard-hitting talk show hosts were sweeping the country? Joe Pine. Anyone remember Joe Pine? And there was someone in Chicago, now in Boston, Jerry, somebody help me with his name. Jerry, not Springer. Anyway, he was the kind of host where people were talking about it for 3 or 4 days after, but what was most prominent about all of these talks, Joe Pine particularly, was their ego, an extraordinary ego. How different that is today, isn't it? We just don't have talk show hosts that have that kind of ego thing. As a result of that early experience, here was a Chickenman episode that we did.
Good evening. This is the Wallace Helium Show. This is your program because through the magic of Wallace Helium's invention, the telephone, you, the listener, can take over and express your opinions. Now, the host of your program, Wallace Helium.
Howdy, and welcome to my program. I'm Wallace Helium. Thank you. Thank you. This is Wallace Helium saying thank you on my program.
And now, meet Mr. Helium's first guest on your program.
My program.
Midland City's crushing answer to lawlessness and or evil, the wonderful white-winged warrior, Chickenman.
Welcome. Welcome. That's enough, folks. Yeah. Welcome to my program, Winged Warrior.
Thank you very much.
I'm Wallace Helium, and this is my program.
I know. And
people are going to call on my program and ask you questions.
Fine, I'll look forward
I'm
to
Wallace Helium. Call right now, this telephone number.
The number is Wallace 44.
And when you call, ask for me, Wallace Helium, because it's my program.
Yes.
Hello, this is Wallace Helium.
Is the Winged Warrior able to leap tall buildings?
You want the Winged Warrior to answer a stupid question like that?
I'm sorry.
What's your name, daughter?
Lana Tishman.
If you ever call me with a stupid question again, I'm going to embarrass you in public on the R. Right here in front of my millions of listeners.
Okay.
All right, go ahead and answer Lana Tishman's stupid question.
What was the question again?
Look, if you're going to be on my program, you write down the question.
I'm sorry, but it came so fast.
I gave you a pencil.
I broke the point.
I'm going to have it sharpened for you. One time, but if you break it once more, you're off the show.
Right.
Hello, your question, please.
Mr. Helium?
Yes, I am.
I think you have the most wonderful program I have ever heard.
Well, aren't you nice? May I ask your name, daughter?
Linda Helium, Daddy.
Thank you for calling, sweetheart. Your question, honey?
Does the Winged Warrior leap tall buildings?
Good question. Well, do you?
I'm writing down the question.
Well, hurry it up.
I'm hurrying. Uh-oh.
Okay, you're off the show. That's it.
But there are thousands of people trying to call here, Mr.
Well, forget them. They're just trying to take over my show anyway.
By episode 267 of Chickenman, you might say, gee, he probably resolved his no respect problem, right? Because surely his creator, Dick Orkin, had resolved his. The series was now heard on over 1,700 radio stations, playing in 7 countries, in translation in some cases. I was sort of famous in the limited way that radio people can become famous. Or did I really believe that? Well, you decide. In an episode near the end of the series, Chickenman was kidnapped by evildoers and placed in a dungeon in Gary, Indiana. And he was held by his kidnappers, who demanded a ransom of $22.95. And when that wasn't paid, Chickenman was allowed to make one phone call to the police commissioner. Short piece from that.
You wanted something?
Yes, sorry to bother you, Commissioner, but I was wondering how things are coming along with my ransom money. Commissioner? You don't have the money, do you, Commissioner?
No.
I stopped writing and producing Chickenman in 1972, but the pieces of the Crusading Capon were reincarnated in another series called The Secret Adventures of the Tooth Fairy. Now, you might say that in The Tooth Fairy I imitated myself, because it was simply Chickenman in a dental smock. But the important thing about the series is not that it was the same character, it's that I continue to take threads of my own life and make them uniquely my own in the series. And the issue was identification. That's actually Chickenman, not Tooth Fairy. Identification. There are millions of people out there who recognized in Chickenman and Tooth Fairy their own failed attempts of being somebody. And they laughed because it was a way to relieve their own pain about it. They identified themselves in it in some way. And this brings up the question of originality. After all, isn't that what we're talking about here, originality? But let me tell you something about originality. All of you are struggling to be original, whatever you do. Originality, like genius, is rare. In the arts, we can't discover originality, only trends, only styles, twists, slants, tricks, exaggerations, emphasis on parts instead of a whole. But originality must be in the beginning of something. I mean, what do you strive for? What do you want? How are you different from the talent who is on 6 to 10 or 10 to 3? And then how are you different from Imus or Stern or Gene Shepard or Dick Orkin? I think the answer is this, connecting to the human condition. People who teach creative writing would call this characterization, but I am in the broadcast and advertising field. And for me in advertising and for you in performance, live or recorded, the answer is connecting to the human condition. In other words, presenting in the copy that you read, in the features that you create, a recognizable human being in a recognizable human situation. Identification. Because identification is emotion. Without emotion, there is no soul connection to another person. A connection that allows the listener to say, been there, done that, been there, felt that, been there, feared that, been there, hated that, or want to be there, want to feel that. And bringing my life to my work, worked in radio serials, it touched others, sometimes in ways that surprised me. Veterans of Vietnam would come back and they would tell me they heard the series when they were alone, way away from family, and with tears in their eyes they described what it was like to get the experience of something that was from back in their hometown. When I left radio feature writing and creating, I went into advertising. One of the thoughts that occurred to me, and was the driving force, I think, in the advertising world, is how can I find a way to touch people with the advertising in the same way the features did? Not here, not in the head, but in the heart, the place of the soul. This is not a spot I did, but it is certainly a soul spot. I'd like you to listen to it.
The voices you are about to hear were found in the Texas Panhandle.
A, B, C, E, A, F, G.
Jonas?
Now my A, B, C's.
Jonas, why don't you put something on there so your mommy can hear it?
Okay, Daddy.
Say, Mommy, I love you.
Mommy, I love you.
This is Jonas speaking.
This is Jonas.
Can you say speaking?
Speaking. This is Daddy. Watch out, Daddy.
The tape recording you just heard is all that's left of that little boy and his daddy. The only thing he knew about traffic safety, his daddy taught him by accident. Observe Texas traffic safety regulations. Be careful, damn it, be careful. Traffic safety doesn't happen by accident.
That's a soul spot by Chuck Bloor, my friendly competitor in Hollywood. Chuck once told some people who brought him an advertising assignment, and listen to this. Tell me first what you want the audience to feel, and I'll make you a radio spot. Not what do you want the audience to think, what do you want the audience to do, but what do you want the audience to feel? and I'll make you a radio spot. Now, I have a hunch there's some nervousness in this room right now because you're not sure that since we're talking about soul and not computer programming or not mechanical techniques for radio performance, but soul, that you may not have soul. Not to worry, you do have soul. Anyone here married? Those married people, let me see those hands again. Oh my God, look at all these married people in the room. Anyone have a picture of their kids with them? Could you take it out of your wallet for me? Anyone over here have a picture of their kids? Could you take it out of your wallet? How old is yours?
12 and 9.
12 and 9. Oh, cute. He's 5. What is your name? Tom. That's Tom, 12 and 5. What is his name?
Danny.
This is Danny. Any problems with Danny? Yeah, when he was any problems walking, any problem going to school? He had a heart condition. Yeah, he had a medical problem then. How about with your kids? Any medical problems of any kind? Any problems with?
No, the only problem I have with them is I don't get to see them.
You don't get to see him. Yeah. Do you get to see yours?
Oh, all the time.
Get to see him all the time? Yeah. What's it like? No. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah. Yeah.
I had them for a week, a couple weeks ago, and their mother's just a real bitch. Makes trying to talk with them or visit them very different.
Anyone else with a mother who's a bitch in the room? Okay.
I'm serious.
He's serious. Okay. Let's return this to. Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyone understand this problem over here? Not being able to see your kids. Anyone identify with that? Want to see them more often? You do. You understand that? You don't always get time to see yours too. Yeah. Turn and look at this man. Okay. There's a soul connection here, and the very fact the two of you have children, and you have shared problems with the children, means that you also have a soul connection. Anyone having a problem in their relationship right now with wife or significant other, even a little minor problem? Hands? There's one. There's one back there too. There's another one back there. There are soul connections there. So I have a suspicion that if you sat and you talked to each other in a moment, I'm going to ask you to do a little bit more, you would discover that you have enormous soul connections. Sometimes soul hides itself. But you know, all of these issues that we're talking about here in terms of connections to other people is absolutely essential to do creative work, to make your work your own. Because the creative fuel necessary to do this work is life, the life you live. Years and years ago, sometimes even today, when people talked about being creative, they talked about their muse. You ever hear that? Some personal, friendly angel or spirit that would come down and inspire them in some way. But S.J. Perlman, who was a great American essayist, said, waiting for the muse is a very hard dollar. So he didn't wait for it. He turned to his own life, to his soul experiences, and that sparked his creative engine. And in this great age of reason and science, some people, perhaps several in this room, trust neither the muse or their soul experiences. They believe that the creative process can be reduced to mechanical formulas. And sometimes in movies we see that kind of thing too. We see the mechanical formulas, and it bores us all to hell when we see it. And we say it's too mechanical. So what's the problem? Not here, but with mechanical kinds of commercial copy, or more important, with your approach, your mechanical approach to commercial copy. I call it the announcer sound. How does it come about? How is it that you can take a piece of commercial copy and make it sound like copy that was read by another DJ in another city in exactly the same way, with the same vocal inflections, with the same melody, with the same attitude? Howard Gossage, who was a great San Francisco ad man, said here's why he thinks this happens. I think it's significant to talk about this on the eve, not the eve, this is radio's 75th anniversary year. Did you all know that? It's the birthday of radio. November 2nd, I believe, of this year, radio is 75 years old. First commercial broadcast from KDKA. Here's what Gossage said. He said, going back before the dawn of tape-recorded history, during what may be called radio's Firestone age, a radio announcer used to say, hello out there. Remember how I listened to the radio and I interacted with it in that piece that I played, and I responded? And the announcer who was presenting the scary opening asked if I was listening, and I said, yeah, I'm listening. hello out there. That was as much a question as a greeting. He wasn't sure whether anybody had been able to pick him up. Reception in those days was very chancy. But he wanted to make sure he was getting through. There was a name for what they did, by the way, out there. It was called DXing. And Gossage said, I don't propose that we revive the AMP Gypsies, but here's the thing. The audience then was eager to listen, and the announcer was eager to talk to them. They both knew who they were and why they were. They enjoyed an exclusive relationship. They communicated. Now, these two ingredients, the performer and the audience, have always been and still are the essentials of communication. You can't do without them. And today, communicators regard creativity, he says, as a mechanical technique, a formula to be practiced on an undefined somebody, on an undifferentiated somebody else. Gossage said it is roughly analogous to a set of instructions for making love by the numbers without reference to men or women. And I suggest to you that's the problem here. In the radio performances that I heard in those air checks, it's an excessive preoccupation with content, with form rather than content. You're listening to your own voice. You're talking at people rather than to them. Joni Gerber, who was in Dan's conference about 2 years ago, said almost the same thing. She called it the annoying announcery sound. I heard a lot of annoying announcery sounds on those air checks, too many. This emphasis on how you say it, as opposed to what you're saying, it seems to me has brought performers further and further out of contact with the audience. And the result is sameness, cliche sound, imitation, and boredom. Don Imus said in Radio Inc. that the key to a successful career in radio is to remember that you are not that different from the people listening to the radio. Some of you, from time to time, as I did, think that you are. Sense of inflated importance. And Imus said that the big mistake people make when they're going to radio is to go on into it and be something they are not. Not normally. If you're not an interesting and funny person, he said, it won't work. I agree. On the other hand, I say to you that if you take a chance on being you, then something extraordinary can happen here. And if that extraordinary thing that happens involves your own life story in some way, not every detail of it, but those aspects that resonate for everyone out there that make a soul connection, then that may be enough and that may be important. This ability to connect to people through our stories is something that comes to all of you. You're hardwired for it at birth. You may not have known that. This telling of our story. We do it from the time we're kids because it makes our lives coherent. We tell our story to make sense of the world. Now, if you're planning to build a story feature, even write a story radio commercial, remember this. It starts with character, the credibility of character that I talked about in the very beginning. Character moves or creates plot. Plot embodies theme. Theme reveals character. This is from, again, that book I referred to, Lajos Egri's Creative Writing. It isn't the other way around. It isn't theme reveals character or plot and then character. It's character. We start with you, with who you are and your life story. Dick Wasserman, who's an advertising teacher in New York City, said that at bottom, all effective advertising, and I would add the word communication, is built on the idea of an effective story. If it's an effective story, it's effective advertising. If it's effective advertising, it's an effective story. Look at some of these story ads, print ads. This is a unique one. Imagine, this is Kohler. They make plumbing materials for adults, bathroom fixtures. Look what they chose as a way of talking to the adults. Child's images from a children's story. There's a story inherent in this, and it connects to all of us because we have said, along with Mel Brooks, how many times, life stinks. Here's a story we see in Beverly Hills all the time. We don't understand this story, but we see it there. I mean, our question that makes this story is, what the hell is he doing with her and what is she doing with him? This is a story. It's the most basic, universal story of all. This is a very interesting story, or the beginning of one. Here, famous Charlie ad. This was for a computer, mouse. You know, the mouse used in the computer. This is for the Logitech mouse. And this is a double-page spread. On the left-hand side of the page, we see this. And the right-hand side of the page, We see that. I brought this along. There it goes. See right there. Yeah. It's hard. You can come up and take a closer look if you can't see it there, yeah. Does anyone want me to leave this up for a while? The stories in all these ads deal with universal themes, and we can tell that. There are moments that belong to the most human aspect, and this is the most human aspect of who we are and how we got that way. And the relationship as a universal theme forms, by the way, a million stories. Let's listen to this spot.
The Adventures of a Single Girl, brought to you by LA Gear.
Before we even think about knowing each other, are you sexy? Ever been to LA? Blue cheese or ranch? Chicken or the egg? Miles Davis or Mick Jagger? What color is your refrigerator? Truth or dare? Ever had acupuncture? Do you still live with your mother? Do you read Dr. Seuss? Are you happy? Are you sure? Do you call your friends bro? Are your kisses soft? Do you own a bike? Would you go to marriage counseling? Do you dance? What's your sign? Are you allergic to cats? Does money excite you? What part of LA? Ever heard of LA Gear? Do you blow dry your hair? Are you into reggae like Bob Marley and incense? Do I scare you? Ever been to the library? How old are you? Are you insecure? What's your favorite color? Do you like Joe Montana? Are you afraid to express your feelings? Do you own or rent? Were you faithful to your ex? Do you snore? Will you love me forever and ever? Are you the jealous, possessive type?
LA Gear. Have a nice day.
Stories of our lives. I recently turned 60, and of course my mother no longer plays a role in my life, not a major role. I don't think so. Or does she? Listen to this.
Look, Mom, the prince that took a Dad's birthday party are back from Kroger.
Look at that shot of Dad doing the cha-cha with the dog.
Yeah.
Isn't that Sparky adorable?
Great color, huh?
Yeah, you can see every color in that party hat that Dad made Sparky wear.
Yeah, Kroger uses Kodak paper.
I'd give anything to have a picture like this.
Oh, Mom, it sure is. I got 2 prints with every shot.
You're such a good son.
Well, Mom, it's nothing really.
You ordered and paid for an extra print of every shot just for me, your mother?
No, see, Mom, I did...
To be blessed with such a boy.
Mom, listen, all I did was get Kroger 2 prints for the price of 1.
Kroger 2 prints for the price of 1?
Yeah, Kroger does it for everybody.
So, in other words, you didn't go out of your way for your mother.
Oh,
you
well.
didn't even think of your mother.
See, I did
You're
go...
still the same inconsiderate jughead you always
Mom,
were.
I'm giving you an extra print.
No! Kroger is giving me an extra print. Thank goodness somebody still appreciates
Listen,
mothers.
Mom,
Don't touch me! Get him, Sparky!
Mom!
Take your pictures to Kroger, because sometimes it's nice to get 2 prints for the price of 1.
Like I said, I just turned 58. 54. No, I just turned 60. And of course, I'm happily married, still to Bunny. Just celebrated our 40th anniversary, by the way. And I don't think much about being with other women. Much.
Fellas, I love you.
And I love you, Brad.
Here in your hot tub watching the sunset.
More duck pate?
No, thanks, and I must go.
Brad?
I promised my Aunt Edna I'd come over for dinner.
Call, make an excuse.
Yeah, sure.
Here, use my AT&T cordless phone. I'll be quiet.
Oh, it's cordless. She'll never hear a thing.
The AT&T 5000 series cordless phone is as clear as an AT&T corded phone.
Hello?
Aunt Edna, it's me, Brad. I have to work late here at the
Oh,
office.
Bradley, that's a shame, but what's that sound?
Well, what sound?
A butter knife cutting through duck pate,
Ah.
being spread on a round salted wheat cracker, no rye. And since when does your office have a redwood hot tub with warm swirling jet bubbles?
Oh, well, I know.
A champagne cork, French Route 1984? No, 85. You Dickens, you're not in your office.
Oh, well, I'm...
The AT&T 5000 series cordless phones. Extended battery life, one-touch channel selection, and sound so crisp and clear, just about everything will be heard.
And is that the sound of a sun setting in the background?
I'll be right over.
The AT&T 5000 series cordless phones at AT&T phone centers and fine retailers. AT&T, the right choice.
So I just turned 60. And I went to see my mother the other day. I asked her how she was doing. She asked me how I was doing. I said, fine, Mom. I just came back from Singapore, did a big workshop there for Singapore radio people. And she said, what do you do in those workshops? And I said, I talk to people about radio. And she said, what is there to say about radio? I said, oh, quite a bit, Mom. And they really liked it. They regard me as really an important person in the business. And my mom gave me that long, hard stare that only my mom can give me. Next spot.
Excuse me, are you going to eat your peanuts?
What?
Well, they're for Teddy, my grandson. Every time I fly, he wants my peanuts, so I
sure.
bring them
Here you
back.
go.
Thank you. You must be very smart.
Excuse me?
I see you're reading the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, yeah, I get it every day.
Your mother must be very proud of you.
Well, I guess she
A
is.
young man like you on his way to the top reading the Wall Street Journal every single day.
Well, you know.
must be extremely intelligent.
Actually, the Wall Street Journal is a lot of fun to read. There's lively articles in the media, the arts, world events.
My word.
See on the front page, there's What's News.
Oh, my goodness.
All the news of the day condensed into 2 quick columns.
That must save you so much time.
Yes, it does.
A busy young man like you fighting your way up the corporate ladder.
Well, I guess.
Not like my son, Dennis. He isn't into business.
Oh, no?
No ambition, no drive.
What does he do for
He's a brain surgeon.
Oh, well, that's a very
I
big...
had such high hopes for him.
Yes, but you see, being
does
a
he
brain...
read the Wall Street Journal? No, he wants to play around with brains all
Oh,
day.
ma'am,
If I
see,
could
that's
just
a very...
shake him.
She's the Wall Street Journal, the daily diary of the American dream.
So I just turned 60, and I try to think what it was like when I was 35, 25, and still played basketball. I love basketball, and I some touch football. I think about those days a lot, and I still dream about being the best damn basketball player in the whole world.
The following experience is brought to you by Steve Sports.
Perhaps you'd like to know what it feels like to wear the incredibly lightweight flight basketball shoes from Nike. All right. I am now taking off from the top of the key past the bewildered expressions of my opposing players. Up ahead on the ceiling, a ventilation duct. I am now leaving the confines of the arena. My flight basketball shoes continue to propel me upward as I merge into the jet stream. Below me, I see lights. A city. Baltimore, I think. I'm approaching the ozone. I'm slipping through a large hole. Up ahead, the Hubble telescope. A few adjustments. There we are. My flight basketball shoes take me higher, further out into space. Nike, it's so beautiful. Pal?
The lightweight flight basketball shoes from Nike. Available for test flights at Steve Sports in the Northgate Mall in 4th and Wilshire.
So I just turned 60, and I think really my best friend is my dog, Brandy. Brandy and I have a way of communicating a soul connection that just does not exist with anyone else in my life. And sometimes we don't understand one another, but that happens with anyone with whom you have a soul connection.
What is it, girl? What, are you hurt? Something wrong? Is Timmy in danger again? Sorry. Do you have to go out? No? What are you dragging in here? Is that a milking stool? What are you telling me? The cow's in danger? No, but it's something about a cow. All right, horns, milk, dairy. Dairy. All right, take it easy. Jeez. All right, next syllable. Sounds like, you're licking my hand. Why are you licking my hand? Oh, it sounds like hand. All right, dairy hand. Dairy band. Dairy land. Dairy land. All right, America's Dairy Land. No? Alice in Dairyland? Still wrong, because you're chewing my elbow.
The dogs are more fun at Dairyland Greyhound Park. 9 programs every week, day and night, and more races on every program. Now through June 24th, check out our special Monday matinees with 1 p.m. post time. There's free parking, and general admission is just $1.
Boy, that was a good one, girl. How about a little Pictionary? All right, I'm first. Give me the pen. Give me the pen. Oh, all right, keep the pen.
Dairyland Greyhound Park, just off I-94 in Kenosha.
My son, who just turned 33, said to me that he's now very serious about a young lady. And he told me about the first time he met her parents, and it took me back to the first time that I met Bunny's parents, Bunny Grosky's parents.
Mom, Dad, this is Warner. He's taking me to our company dinner party.
Hello, Warner.
Hello.
Talk to Warner while I finish dressing.
Well, would you like a nice drink, Warner?
Oh, that'd be terrific, ma'am.
How about a nice beer in a nice green bottle?
On second thought, no thanks.
Oh, don't be shy. I'll put it in a nice glass for you.
No, see, I only drink Killian's Red.
Killian's Red?
Yes, ma'am. It's a wonderful red amber ale.
Well, Ned, did you pick up some Killian's Red?
You didn't tell me to pick up some Killian's Red.
Well, I said pick up something good to drink, and I thought you'd pick up some Killian's Red if you picked up something good to drink.
Well, I didn't. Why can't he drink some beer? That's a drink.
Because the young man drinks Killian's Red, that's
look, I'm
why.
not really that thirsty. When I was his age, I'd drink anything anybody gave me and be darn glad to get it.
When you were his age, you couldn't even get Killian's Red.
Well, what do you want me to do? Get all dressed up and run down to the store and pick up some Killian's Red?
Well, yes.
Is that what you want?
Yes, that would be the courteous thing to do when you have a guest in your home. Yes, that would be.
But I just don't...
Goodbye.
Nice to meet you.
Well, he seemed like a very nice young man. man.
Let alone the picky side, if you ask me.
Well, who asked
Well,
you?
I'm
You know,
telling
I'm
you,
so
I
sick
don't
of the
care.
same
Killian's
thing.
Red instead, brewed by the Adolph Coors Company, Golden, Colorado.
So I just turned 60, and I had a call from my college roommate, Bob. And Bob was the roommate, was the nightmare roommate, because Bob never stopped talking from the moment he started rooming with me. His nickname was Gabby. He simply would not stop talking. And when I got on the phone with him on this long-distance call, Bob talked to me for almost an hour and 15 minutes, and he did all the talking. And I remember Bob very well.
Yeah, I really appreciate your having lunch with me. Everyone at the office is giving me the cold shoulder.
Could you pass the mustard?
I mean, they claim it's because I talk too much about my vacation on Maui, that I go on and on about how wonderful Maui is.
Is there any more coleslaw?
So maybe I once casually mentioned how Maui has 42 miles of beautiful beaches, breathtaking scenery, championship golf courses, snorkeling, windsurfing, award-winning cuisine, and really friendly people.
You're going to eat that little pickle.
I know, but they're overstating it when they say I can't stop telling people Maui's the whale-watching capital of the world, or that I go on and on about the terrific deals on hotels, airfare, and rental cars you can get right now on Maui.
Excuse me.
So, enough about me. What about you?
What do you mean?
How long have you been cleaning your offices?
9 years.
9 years, really. Did I mention how vacationing on Maui is like going to an exotic paradise without really leaving the United States?
I got to go back to work now.
Oh, so you want to have lunch again tomorrow?
You paying?
Yeah.
Okay.
See the Maui Visitors Bureau and flyaway vacation specials in Sunday's L.A. Times. And come to Maui, the Magic Isle.
Just play the next spot.
Billy boy, love the ocean view from this porch of yours.
How would you view two Carlsberg beers?
Oh, wow, what a guy.
Down, Booper. Whenever I serve a Carlsberg, Booper gets all excited.
You are a gorgeous doggy. What'd I say?
It's what you did. You reached for your Carlsberg. Booper thought you were going for mine.
Ah.
It's okay, Booper. He's not going to touch Daddy's Carlsberg.
Right, I'm not going to touch it. I don't think he's fine.
No, Jerry. Don't touch my Carlsberg.
I'm not. I was just...
No, that's just part of the ritual. See, I told you not to touch my Carlsberg, so now Booper knows you've been warned, and it's okay.
Good, because I don't... For crying out loud.
It's okay, Jerry. He's just playing. Pick up your glass.
You know, I'm not really that thirsty anyway.
Trust me. Pick it up.
All right, but if this dog goes berserk... I'm not touching his Carlsberg.
You're sitting on the fire hydrant.
What?
His squeaky toy. You're sitting on it. Get up.
Right, I'm up.
Jerry,
I'm sorry.
hand me that newspaper.
Okay.
I'll take care of this.
Right.
Bad man
Ow.
sitting on
Ow.
Booper's fire hydrant.
Carlsberg beer, the imported taste that can't be touched. Carlsberg Breweries, Copenhagen, Denmark.
So I'm 60, and the other day I decided to take out all the photos in our family's album and assemble them for our 40th anniversary celebration. And one of the pictures I found was that of my grandmother, who, when I looked at it, brought back all the memories of my experience with her. It was my grandmother who taught me to swim. She was the only gutsy one in the family. My mother and father couldn't swim. My grandmother could, and she taught me how to do that. She was a very unusual lady. You don't find many unusual grandmothers with that kind of courage. And I remembered, and it became part of my life story, and it also became part of my work that I made my own.
Well, Grandma, here we are at Disneyland.
Beautiful.
So what ride would you like to go on?
That one.
Oh, that's a new one, Splash Mountain. Very scary.
Scary.
Yeah, you wouldn't like that, Grandma, so pick any other ride.
That one.
No, Splash Mountain is too scary for you, Grandma, okay?
Okay.
But they have lots of other rides, okay?
Okay.
So, which one would
that
you like?
One.
Grandma, see, Splash Mountain has 5 steep waterfalls, and they drop into swamps and stuff with alligators. Pretend ones, but very real-like. And then, Grandma, you listening?
Yeah.
At the very end of Splash Mountain, you fly off the world's highest water drop, 5 stories high. Very, very scary. Not a ride for grandmas, okay?
Okay, I want to go on that one.
Grandma, the truth is, I won't let you go alone on Splash Mountain. I can't, I won't.
It's okay, Grandma, take care of it.
That's not the point.
Take my hand.
No, I don't.
My hand, kid.
I don't.
Splash Mountain. The only way out is a long way down. Now open at Disneyland.
That we leave behind all these cliches, whether in creating features or reading copy or reporting news or talking to the audience. I gave you this as a piece, as a handout piece, and you can take it with you, and you won't grab it all at the first time. You don't have to look at it now. But what I say in it is that it's boiled down to simply this. To make everything your own, you need to take outside material and mix it up with your own character and your own personality, whoever you are. To set yourself apart from the material means that each of you individually, limit your ability to reach out and touch the audience. However, when your individual and recognizable character qualities get mixed up with the outside material, something really great happens. How do you find your own character qualities? It's a very simple thing. Look to your own life experiences, the good and the bad, especially the bad. Don't move away from them. Don't say, this is something so bad, I can't disclose it or reveal it to anyone. It's what makes you unique as a personality. It's what makes you unique in your handling of copy. Whatever you see and whenever you see it on the air or off the air, and it makes contact with your own life, the result will be a spontaneous and very appealing performance. In the acting game, I do a workshop for voiceover in Los Angeles, and what we say to the actors, the voiceover people, many coming from radio, over and over and over again is, you've got to be in the moment, listen and answer. Be in the moment, listen and answer. Take out those little handouts I gave you. You'll see there some jokes that I brought along from some of the worst joke magazines in the world. In other words, they're not the most recent, they're old jokes. We're not going to go through this whole exercise here, but what I'd like you to do is look at that for a moment and do what I think most everyone who's going to bring their own life to the material and make it their own needs to do. Ask yourself this question. How can I take this material and make it my own? How can I take a story and make it my own? Let me give you an example. When my father was in his 80s, his memory started to go. It was both sad and funny all at the same time. And one time he came to me and he said, Dick, your mother and I went to a restaurant last night. It was the finest restaurant I've ever been to. The food was absolutely superb. I said, that's great, Dad. Well, what's the name of the restaurant? He said, what? I said, what's the name of the restaurant? The name, it's called, the restaurant is called, the restaurant is, what do you call the thing that's straight that comes up and it's got on the top, it's like a bloom, like a flower. A flower, what do you, and it's like, no, not a pansy, it's got the little shooters that stick and hurt you when you grab it. I said, barbs? Yeah, barbs. What do you, I said, you mean a rose? Thank you. Rose! What was the name of the restaurant we ate at last night? Now, that was a story, actually, it was told to me by the mayor of Encino, Mr. Storyteller himself, Ronnie Schell. But in telling it, I appropriated it to my own use. Now, you see stories there, and what you do with the stories, you say, is there a person in this story, as I read these jokes, that connects to someone I know in my life? Is there a situation that is similar to something in my own life? Is there something that has a resonance for me? Have I been there before? Now, it does not have to be this story, but have any of you heard a story recently that was not yours, but in the telling of the story, you brought to it your own experience and set it into the context of your own life? Anyone have one they want to share with us? Anyone at all? Small story, large story. Anyone want to risk it in front of this room of DJs? Just your peers. People who are not going to judge you at all, and people who will leave here and say, oh, wasn't that a funny story? I didn't think you would. Take the material, look at it, and see if you can go home with these pieces or some others, and in some way find a way of converting it to your own story. Or if you don't like these, go look at some gags in the New Yorker. They have some wonderful little stories told there. Now, I don't mean the cartoons, but in the story, they have little joke sections in there. Find some of those. They're the most contemporary and the most wonderful. Or Wired Magazine has some wonderful material in it as well. But the question is, how do I appropriate it to my own use? Let's move off of that and go to the other sheet I gave you, which is announce copy. This is my pet peeve. This is the one that most gives me some concern. I want you to look at this copy for a moment. This is the kind of copy, for the most part, you're going to get when you're handed this live for live use on the air. And here's what I tell the classes in voiceover they need to do with copy, even if it's done instantaneously. What you're not asking yourself is, what voice should I use? What tone of voice should I use? How important should I sound? Where should I pitch my voice? The question you need to ask is the one Chuck Bloor asked. What do I want the audience to feel? How do you do that? Look at the copy and imagine a situation where you would tell this to someone that you know intimately, firsthand. Who are they? Where are they? I need some volunteers to do this. Wonderful. Oh, great. Come on up. I'm shocked because I usually don't get volunteers. I have to pick the volunteers. That's great. Anyone else? Good. Could you bring your copy with you? Yeah, come on up. 2 or 3 would do it. Anyone else want to do it? Okay, we'll use this mic right here. We can actually turn on these lights for a moment. What I'd like you to do is first tell me your names. Louisa and Louisa and John. Pick any of those little pieces of an ounce copy. Look at it for a moment and ask the question that I'm asking here. What is it I want the audience to feel? Who am I talking to? And in my voiceover classes, I ask people to envision someone, have someone in mind. When I worked at WLAN, WGL, WCFL, I was always talking to a member of my family or a good friend, a good buddy, someone I had an intimate relationship with, because it worked better that way. Not a stranger, and certainly not a mass audience. The mass audience focus is the one that gets you that sound of talking at people rather than to them. When you talk to a large, undefined, undifferentiated mass, you're talking at people. When you find an individual and you're talking to them, something very special starts to happen because now you are involved in it. It's out of your experience in your life. Louisa, do you want to try and read that? Is that pull that mic? Yeah, read it word, or you can change it somewhat if you want to, which is also acceptable. Don't make major changes. I know the advertiser will have a problem with that, but just roughly. Talk to someone.
You know, real food has no secrets. It draws us together. It opens us up. It shows us what's true and good and full of life. Real food has no secrets. That's why Kraft Deluxe macaroni and cheese is made with real Kraft cheese. Pure and simple. Because we believe the value of real food is measured by what you bring to the table and by what you take away.
Very good. Tom? Louisa and
John.
Jeff.
My dad always said, if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. I always said I'd rather do it professionally, especially when it comes to gardening. Then he told me about the Kmart Lawn and Garden Center. They have everything you need to do it yourself, even if you're a professional. Kmart has a huge selection of plants, and fertilizers, soil, and all kinds of great equipment for landscaping. Now when it comes to gardening, I still do it professionally, but I do it myself.
Great. Louisa, would you turn now and deliver this piece of copy? If you can do it without necessarily spending a lot of time looking at it, this is only a means to an end because actually you're going to have to read the copy on the air. See if you can talk to him and do the same piece of copy. About the copy. Same thing. Yes, talk to him, but read the copy. Okay. Come up to the mic so we can all hear you.
Okay. John, you know, real food has no secrets. It draws us together. It opens us up. It shows us what's true and good and full of life. Real food has no secrets. That's why Kraft Deluxe macaroni and cheese is made with real Kraft cheese. Pure and simple. Because we believe the value of real food is measured by what you bring to the table and by what you take away.
You notice the difference. You notice what happened as a result of turning and talking to someone. And the great trick in reading radio copy, in performance, whether it's voiceover in a recording studio or at the radio station, is to find that visualization, that perfect image of that other person. To the extent that you can practice that and find that person, the copy gets transformed because now you're bringing your experience and your life to that. John, would you do the same thing and read your copy this time to Louisa?
All right. My dad always said that if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. I always said I'd rather do it professionally, especially when it comes to gardening.
I'm going to stop you for a moment, John. You can bring your level down. You don't need to. It is a microphone. The unique thing about a microphone today, contemporary microphones, is that they give us the opportunity to conversationally talk to people. And the reason we listen to radio today as listeners is because we like the sense of eavesdropping on a conversation. We don't always have to declaim and proclaim on radio. Even if your format demands it, imagine the great variety and diversity that you're going to bring to the format and to the sound of the station by occasionally bringing your level down. So it doesn't all have to be pumped out at the same high speed. So just talk to her. You don't need to necessarily think about announcing it.
My dad always said that if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. I always said I'd rather do it professionally, especially when it comes to gardening. So then my dad told me about Kmart Lawn and Garden Center. They have everything you'd need for to do it yourself, even if you're a professional. Kmart has a huge selection of plants, fertilizers, soil, and all kinds of great equipment for landscaping. Now when it comes to gardening, I still do it myself, but I do it professionally.
Great. Thank you both very much. This was a good job for both of you. Take the copy that I've given you here, or take some copy that you have back at the station, and try some of these little exercises with it. You'll be startled at your enormous opportunity for variety and versatility in the reading, particularly if you're talking to someone. If you want, talk to someone at home. Read the copy to someone at home. Again, in my classes, I ask people to take dialogue spots and ad-lib them, improvise them. That's Chuck Blor's favorite technique to actors. He says, come in the studio and just simply ad-lib the thing. Because I'll get a sense of the believability. I know that you're talking to someone and not at them. Garrison Keillor told Radio Ink magazine just this year that he doesn't listen to radio much anymore. He says he's apparently not the audience that radio wants. He says the turnoff is that talk radio sounds so dreary. He said it's like hanging out in the worst bar room in town among the dumbest people. And the prepackaged music formats, he said, are like that jukebox in that bar. He said he used to love commercial radio when it was real people who grabbed you with wonderful, compelling stuff. But now he says it sounds like noise to me. And he ended this interview in Radio Ink by offering the advice to someone who wants to get into radio, get into it quickly before it's gone. Well, I think it's a gloomy look at the future of radio. I'm not sure that I agree with him on all those points, but I think he is right about one thing. We do need more real people, and we do need more real sound. And I also believe that we need Garrison Keillor to continue to listen to radio. If Garrison Keillor goes away from radio, radio will die, because it makes radio demographically less appealing for major advertisers. How do we get Garrison Keillor back? I think by making everything we do on the air our own, by bringing our lives and our experiences to it, so that it becomes compelling again, so that we feel someone is talking to us, so we have that relationship. Last page, there is, I think, a purple or green. It's a blank page. Would you please tear it off? Just tear it off. I want you to take it, hold it in front of you like this. Did you do the paper clips? Yeah. What I want you to do is, Dan is coming down the aisle. Just ask people, just pass him down the aisle, Dan. Bring some paper clips here. I want you to take it and bring the two left and right pieces together like that, top corners. See that? See what I did? And just hold it there with your finger for a moment. We're passing down little paper clips, and what I want you to do is put a paper clip right here. In other words, fasten these two pieces you're holding with your finger with a paper clip. Can I have one of those paper clips too, Dan? Okay, once you've done that, just sort of put it in front of you like that for a moment. Just set it in front of you for a second, if you would. Here's a spot that I did for radio's 75th birthday, in celebration of that birthday. This spot and one other one are on cassettes that you can take back to your radio station. They're public service spots and play. I did them for Radio Ink, and they're going to come to you in about 3 weeks on a CD, but you guys can get a head jump on radio's 75th birthday by grabbing a cassette, and you're welcome to play it on the air. You'll be the first on your station and in your market maybe to play this spot. Here's the spot that I did based on an experience with someone I lived with for many, many years. See if you recognize them based on the stories that I've told you.
So you're telling our listeners that you once had an idea that was better than radio.
That's right. Radio's a fad. Passing fancy won't last.
Well, radio's celebrating its 75th anniversary now.
Well, my idea will make a comeback.
I see. And what did you call it?
Yelling.
Yelling.
You stand on the roof of the tallest building you can find and yell.
I see. What do you yell?
The weather, the news, whatever.
And people could hear this?
Not at first, but then I started using a megaphone, a big one people could hear for blocks.
So what if people didn't want to hear what you were saying?
Some people expressed that concern. concern, so then I invented something for that.
And that was?
Earplugs.
But people preferred radio.
Go figure. Now it's everywhere. In cars and elevators, strapped to their heads. Music, news, comedy, talk shows. I had the very first talk show,
Did you really?
Yeah, people would yell up at me from the sidewalk. We discussed every issue of the day.
Such as?
Shut up there! Get off the roof! And I'd yell back, mind your own business! Entertaining, let me tell you, people loved it.
I bet.
Yeah.
Radio, putting the world in your ears for 75 years. Produced for radio's 75th anniversary by Dick Orkin's Radio Ranch. Your announcer is Gary Owens.
How to make your work your own. Find the courage to bring your own life to the work. We saw some of that here in these little exercises we did. And if there's a little more of that going on in radio, we may in fact bring Garrison Keillor and a lot more people back to radio. And it seems to me that this year the greatest gift that you could give to radio on its 75th birthday is precisely that. But let's sort of seal the bargain here, that that's what we're going to go back and do. Would you all stand, please? Day to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear radio, happy birthday to you. Let's hear it for radio. Thank you. Sit down. I'll steal only 2 or 3 minutes of Dan's time because we want to break here. Any questions? I only have 2 or 3 answers, so only 2 or 3 questions. Yeah.
Some great points. Having a 2-person morning show at our radio station, most of the radio stations in the market have the same thing. The people interacting, and then I come on. It's midday. I'm by myself. All of a sudden,
What do you do?
It's basically a mixed format, hot AC format, and they're so personable in the morning. 2 people interacting in the morning, and then I come on. The afternoon drive guy comes on, and it's so much more difficult because we're in the room by ourselves.
Well, you may be in the room by yourself, but you're not in the world by yourself.
Right.
You do have an audience out there, and you have an opportunity to interact with them in the copy that you read, even in the weather reports that you give, and the traffic checks you give. There is a way to deliver that material so it's not the standard cliche kind of patter or melody. There is a way to say, oh, this is different. This would be a great day. I may even take my kids and go to the beach if I weren't working here. There is a way to personalize all of this material in terms of your own experience in your own life. Unless you've got a radio consultant who tells you that there is a thing called stationality, and you can't break with that because no one gives a damn about your personal life, then that's a different problem, and I can't address that. Then my answer is, we need not to fire the DJs, we need to fire the program consultants.
Yeah.
But I do think you can find some ways of doing it with the copy you read. We just gave a demonstration. I tell you, the more you do that, the more frequently you do that, the more likely you're going to bring to that material that kind of experience that says, oh, this is a person talking to me. This is not simply an announcer, quotation marks, who's doing his sound for me. Yes?
Yeah, I naturally, I'm about 10 years younger than you, but I've grown up with other models, the generation after Jack Benny, et cetera, the first top 40 jocks. I spent a lot of time as program director at our station in Germany trying to get our performers to do this kind of prep and sort of open up the doors. And I believe in that. And something happened last week that made me doubt everything that we think about in terms of radio. And I'd just like to get your reaction to it. I was riding around in the car with my son, who's 17 years old, and on the Voice of America there was a special on with the real Don Steele doing the best hits of 1963. And I said, Billy, listen to this. This is great stuff. This is just exactly what radio was like when I was growing up and what made me get in the business. And he didn't say anything. I mean, all the stuff that we're talking about here that I'm trying to beat into the heads of my disc jockeys has nothing to do with what the real Don Steele does. He was doing 8-second ramps, 11-second ramps, saying, I'm Don Steele, and these are the Supremes. But I liked it. It was great. And I'm asking myself, somehow those two things don't come together. And can you sort of clear that up for me? Why is that good, what he's doing? I think it's great, but it has nothing to do with what we're trying to teach people about opening the doors to their soul and giving part of yourself.
Well, I have a hunch that part of your feeling about that is a nostalgia feeling. I feel the same way about many of the performers that I have tapes of performers going back the 1960s, 1970s. I have Ron Britton, I have Barney Pip, a lot of Chicago people, and I have the same feeling about that material. It's a nostalgia thing, but I'm not sure I want to return to that period. I think the time has changed. I think the lives of the people that we're talking to have changed. And somehow, some way, we need to connect our lives, which are just like theirs, to that experience. I think we're talking above people, not to them. And I don't know, I mean, nostalgia is a wonderful thing, and I'm all in favor of remembering some of those great, and Arthur Godfrey was a wonderful personality, but I don't think Arthur would work today. I don't think he brings the same thing to our lives that he brought back then. Part of that was the shock value. He was doing things with Lipton tea and Lipton's chicken noodle soup that was so new, so bold, so daring, that was one of the reasons we found it tremendous, that he was breaking all the rules. And breaking all the rules is fun, but I don't think that in this audience of Roseanne and Howard Stern, that breaking the rules is new anymore. I think talking to people, being who you are, and connecting with them in a kind of one-to-one way is far more powerful, and in the long run, if you practice it, far more likely to make you an enormously important personality. I have no other answer for it than that. But that's a good question. Anybody else? Not much more, because we need to get to... Yeah, well, I'll take one more, and then we'll... 3 is a nice round number, Dan, and sound good on your tape. Okay?
A lot of us have admired your work, over the years. I just wanted to know a day in the life of Dick Orkin creating the spot. How do you do it?
Well, we thank you. Good question, Dad. We start by taking a briefing session in the morning from the client. He fills out a briefing sheet, sends it, faxes it to us, and we sit with 4 of our staff members in our conference room table, and via phone, we get a briefing, we ask them questions. The only really important question that I have started to ask in recent years, clients always tell you more than you need to know, and because they're very close to the product and the service, and they think you're going to want to know everything, and you don't. The basic question that finally comes down to for me, and I borrowed this from the Y&R Traveling Creative Workshop, is what problem for the consumer does the product or service solve? And I ask them to put it in the first person. Okay, my problem is I want to buy a home, I don't have enough money, and all the homes I see are crap, and I don't want to buy a crap home because I don't have enough money. So what does your development, what kind of problem gets solved by your service or product? And when people become their customers, I discover the advertising is more powerful. So basically what I'm doing is say, become your customer. We then go away, we sit, we brainstorm ideas. Based on our own technique, which is called Dialogue with Experience, we go into our own lives. Have any of you been in my Dialogue with Experience workshop? Okay. We just basically do what we do in the DWE workshop, which is tell our own personal stories, and then we merge them with the product or service. We then go and sometimes collaborate on writing the spots. That could take a week. Come back, present them to the whole group. Some people have 2 or 3 spots, some have 1. We read them all together. 2 of us are actors sitting around this conference room table. We pick the best, and then on the basis of, for every 1 spot we are asked to do, we produce 4. We go produce 8 spots, and out of the 8, we pick those that we think are the most powerful and the most relevant to the advertising objective, and we put them on tape and send them to the client, and the client reacts to them, usually makes minimal changes, and that's it. So any given day, I could be doing any one of those pieces in that scenario I just outlined for you. You have been a great group. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. You're part of my family and have been for many years, and I wish all of you the best of luck in your work. Hope you bring your life to it, and I also wish you and radio a happy birthday. Thanks all very much.